Welcome to Waking Up Jacobin 2020 Special Election Pre-Show. I am James Jacobin, along with my colleague Matthew Stone.
Hey James, it's wonderful to be here tonight. We're going to be doing coverage all evening. Hopefully we don't get sick of each other.
It is approximately 5 p.m. on the East Coast. Here in a couple hours at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 California time, and 5 Mountain time. In fact, I have a report for that. Matt, would you do the honors?
Absolutely, James. We're Waking Up Jacobin special 2020 election coverage. We'll be starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Mountain, and 4 p.m. Pacific.
Now, the show's going to kick off live, the prime time show at 5 p.m. our time, 7 o'clock back east, and 4 o'clock after California. Pretty quiet election day so far. No one's declared victory just yet. And I imagine by the amount of lawsuits coming into Wisconsin, Florida, and Ohio, no one's going to declare victory anytime soon. But I will be here with Matthew Stone and our craft production team all night long, bringing you the electoral updates, the key Senate races, and providing comfort and historical perspective to the events as they happen on the ground. Here in just a few moments, we'll introduce our third chair, award-winning author and journalist, Mike McKenna. Now, Matt, as we start out today, these are the headlines from a couple of just Sanskrit of the national papers. Pretty interesting stuff. USA Today, now it's up to you, America. I think they tried to make this look like the Ollie Holmes boxing cover poster. And the Wall Street Journal, even more scintillating, Trump Biden fight it out to the end. What do you think these headlines say tomorrow, sir?
Well, I think they'll still be counting tomorrow, don't you, James?
I think they'll be counting in a lot of states. An interesting footnote that we'll be following all night is the state of Florida is the only state that is counting all of the mail-in ballots as they came in. So the state of Florida is going to close at 7 o'clock on the eastern seaboard. In reality, if they have that vote counted, then they're just looking to count the rest of their raw vote. You may have a projected winner in Florida by 9:30 Eastern time, 7:30 where we're at.
Absolutely, James, but everywhere else, it may take longer to count in those votes, depending on how many are actually sent in. It could be a long night.
What could be like in the state of Minnesota, where the Supreme Court ruled that the state of Minnesota could not change their election laws without going through the legislature. So any vote to be counted in the state of Minnesota has to be in the building by midnight tonight in Minnesota. So you've got an example of Minnesota not extending the deadline, and Florida counting them ahead of time. And you've got 75 states maybe. So you've got different rules.
Last time I checked.
Different rules in each state. I think we had a former president say that there was 57 states once. I'm in good company.
James, am I correct that the mail-in votes may or may not be counted if the margin of victory is greater than those votes?
It's possible. I think you're talking about provisional ballots. Now, in the past, you have absentee ballots, which were relatively a rare thing. Military veterans overseas, people traveling. You'd have to request an absentee ballot, give a reason, have the signature match, and then you send it in from wherever you are. A provisional ballot is you go vote at your local polling place on election day, and you're not registered. But you say, oh, no, I know, I registered down to the DMV. They will let you vote provisionally, meaning they'll take your vote, and then they'll confirm who you are after the fact. In a lot of cases, if that vote doesn't matter, meaning that the margin of victory was so wide, they don't even count those ballots. They just don't count. They don't do the research to check on if you're.
But don't worry, James, your vote does count.
Just ask the people in Florida in the year 2000. The mail-in balloting, this is why this is going to end up in the Supreme Court in about 4 or 5 different cases. I'm reminded here about the Florida election in 2000, which was ultimately decided by a 5-4 decision of the U.S. Supreme Court. And every step of the way, Matthew, as it wound its way through the court system, whoever appointed the judges to that particular level of the Florida Supreme Court, 6 out of the 7 members of the Florida Supreme Court were appointed by liberals. So that went the Democratic way. The Supreme Court, 5-4 appointed by conservatives, that went that way. This is why we don't want elections decided in the courts. And that was Florida. That took 36 days. That was one state, one issue. Whether or not to continue the recount. That's what it all boiled down to. Now we're going to have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 states with lawsuits coming from literally everywhere. The only people winning tonight are the lawyers.
Before you get too far, James, and use up all of our material for the entire evening, let's bring back the viewers if they care to join us. We have 2020.jacobinbrothers.com where you can join us. You can follow us live. And
Well, this breaking out this is arbitrary, this is breaking news. Provided by the Joe Biden campaign this morning, has come out of the campaign that if Joe Biden, whether he's declared the victory by the Associated Press, NBC, whatever news organizations, if he feels by his own internal numbers, he's going to declare victory and move forward as if he is the president-elect. This is a huge sea change for the Biden campaign because they've spent the last 6 months criticizing Trump for his comments about whether or not he can see the election or not. So Biden has now come out and said no matter what happens, if they feel like they have the numbers, they're going to declare victory. And we'll be keeping an eye on that all night long.
that's interesting, James. So I don't think that the themselves are who are supposed to declare these victories. Shouldn't that be declared by the numbers?
Well, again, then we're going to go back to Florida in 2000. The Democrats now, Trevor, feel like that because George Bush was ahead by a handful of votes on election night and acted like he won every step of the way, that they played defense for those 36 days. Biden wants to play offense. And it's pretty clear. The courts might not decide the election, but this is going to end up in the courts. Thank you, Matt. We'll see you when you get back. Coming here to join me at the desk at this time is going to be Mike McKenna.
Thanks, Travis. James, good to be here.
Thank you for taking time away from your many different responsibilities to join us. How do you see this playing out today?
Well, I think it's going to be a fascinating turn of events. You know, some of those early numbers make it look like Biden's going to win big, and if that's the case, our night's a little bit easier. But those numbers weren't right last time around, so I don't know that we can go to the bank with that yet. So I think the prediction is this is going to last a while and not be settled tonight, which would be a bummer, but I think that may be the way we're going.
Fair enough. Now, Mike is going to be joining us at roughly the top of each hour to do some news breaks and keep you up to date on what's going on with the stock market, the legal challenges, and other issues on the ground are breaking at the time. He will also at points in time sit in his chair, anchor the show, and Mike's going to talk to us a little bit later on about forestry.
Yes, and the big year here, especially in the western part of the country, has been fires and the way Forest Service has managed those things over the years. And so, we'll give you a little history, a little background, try to settle some of those debates that have gone on about why we've had such a bad fire year and why we continue to have it. But history will show we're just sort of repeating our patterns, for better or worse.
Well, stay tuned for that. Mike, would you mind holding up our little ad board there?
I sure will.
We're doing a high-tech production here tonight. If you're watching the pre-show here at Waking Up Jacobin, Special Election 2020, please forward this on to your friends. We'll be going live here in roughly an hour and 40 minutes. Does that sound about right, everyone?
Hour and about 55.
Hour and 55 minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Mike, is there anything going on in the sporting world today?
Is there anything going on in the sporting world today? No, it's a fairly quiet time for the sports world right now with baseball season and hockey and baseball all come to a close, but it is NFL trading deadline day though, so that should be fairly interesting for those of us who have teams that still have a chance, unlike my beloved Patriots.
Okay, and with that, Mike, there's a lot of people that say this is an election like no other. Now, part of that is gamesmanship on behalf of campaigns, part of that is seeking viewership on behalf of larger media, but there is some differences between this campaign and at least the recent campaigns. And what we're going to get into throughout the night is we're going to cover these topics one by one. We're going to take a look back at presidential history, how hard it is to be reelected president, how hard it is to take the Senate over if you're the minority party. In this case, tonight we have Democrats have on paper a pretty simple job. We flip 3 or 4 seats, they take over, reverse all of Trump's policies, and we're on our way. If I remember a few short years ago, a guy, Donald Trump, the winner of that, had that plan.
Yes.
Because what every president learns when they get in office is it's not so simple. You can't govern when you campaign.
Agree.
Absolutely, yeah. His learning curve has been fairly interesting, whether he'll accept it or not, yeah.
Why I think any neutral, nonpartisan observation of the president's personal behaviors is obviously the term of improvement. The question really comes down to this evening, and mind you, this election may have already been decided. We have upwards of between 100 and 130 votes. People already voted and mailed in with stamps on them. They're at the post office, they're at Secretary of State offices.
How many 30 million?
Is it 100? Is
that what you said? I'm not sure.
Between 100 and 130 million. Wow. Depending on which news reports are more accurate than the others. There was an election not so long ago, 1960, where that was more than the total raw vote. Wow. So, yeah. So we really could just be, basically, we could just be picking over the bones of the carcass of the election. if these votes are counted accurately, it can be a short night.
It could be, and it's also exciting for America that we're actually getting out and voting. Granted, we're only voting because we're either pissed off or we're really defensive, but it's great, whatever it takes to get people to the polls is exciting. And you know, as a political fan for years, I've never seen anything like this.
You know, this has changed of Obama, but the tone of that was different because the personalities of Mr. Obama and Mr. McCain generally positive human beings.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Actually, a lot of political differences, different political time, coming out of the Iraq War, the economy crashed, but generally both of them were on upbeat campaigns. John McCain's slogan was country first, of course, Barack Obama's hoping change.
Yes.
There were those who said, you keep my hope, I'll keep my money, but but then you've got as much interest now, but I tend to say if there's a spectrum, it's going all the way into Lincoln Red more towards the not so positive side.
That is unfortunately what's got everybody fired up, right? You know, we'd like to complain more so than act with solutions. We like to complain about what the problems are, so, you know.
Well, we'll see, because we could be looking at not just record turnout of eligible voters, but an actual record number of people voting. But record number of people voting. And we'll see, but even with that, Barack Obama was elected by 52% of eligible voters that voted in 2008. That's voting, right? That means 27% of adults in America voted for Barack Obama. Now, he came in at the Democratic House and Senate, that's a lot of power, 27% of the vote. Now watch this, Trump comes in 23%, and he comes in with the Republican House and Senate, so reversed.
Fascinating.
And if you could just get another 10 to 12% to vote, and we'll talk about that more tonight, the fact that we have two political parties. The key thing I've been hearing, and I think when I've talked about this out there, no one is excited to vote for either of these people. There's a few. Trump has his hardcore base. Biden doesn't have a base so much as he's got liberals who love liberals.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it's going to play out, and we'll see how that works out. Coming up here in exactly 2 hours, 7 p.m. in the East, 4 p.m. in California, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. I am James Jacobin. This has been a preview of Waking Up Jacobin Special Election 2020. We'll see you in a couple hours. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mike McKenna.
Good to be here. Thanks
See you in a couple hours.